Hi there, Frank Tate here again with another video about IBM Directory Integrator. And today is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to open IDI at all. We're just going to be talking about how to decrypt the idisrv.sth file that's included with Directory Integrator and which stores an encrypted version of the password for the testserver.jks key store that's used by Directory Integrator. So there's a little bit of background here. Previously, the GS kit, the IBM GS kit that included iKeyman was included with IDI. But since about late 2022, the GS kit was deprecated, I believe just to avoid having to keep up with vulnerabilities. They switched to the OpenSSL cryptographic libraries. IBM switched to them. And so iKeyman is no longer provided. And what iKeyman allowed you to do is open up key stores and also save the password for the key store to what they called a stash file. Well, that stash file was really easy to open with or to decrypt. It was basically, everything was XORed with hex 05, I believe. So decrypting it, I've got a link in the post that's linked in the description to the code that you can use to open up previous stash files. But that's no longer the case. Now IBM products may or may not support the use of stash files, and each one of these products, if they do support a stash file, each one will have its own format for the stash file. And that's the case we have with IDI now, where it creates a stash file and it provides a utility to allow you to create that stash file, idisrv.sth, but there's no utility directly provided to decrypt that stash file. And so what I did is I went through and sort of reverse engineered it and found the method that would need to be used to decrypt the file. And that's what I've done. I've created a Java program to do that. And so what I'm going to do is walk through how I figured out how to do that, how I reverse engineered how to do that, and what the code looks like. And I'll provide links to all of that in the blog post that's linked in the description. So first place I want to go is I'm on a TDI 711 system that also has ISM 6, I believe, installed with WebSphere 8.5.5.23. And all that means is I have the Java-C compiler that's at an appropriate version to deal with the Java code that's included with ISM 711. If things can go poorly, if you have a newer version of Java or an older version of Java, stuff like that. But I'm not going to cover all that in here. I'm just going to go through what I did to figure out how to decrypt this file. So the first thing I did is I'm in my TDI install directory under bin, and there is a createstash.sh script that IBM provides. And if I look at that guy, I can see in here, well, a bunch of comments, and then I can see it runs setup command line, and then the bulk of what it does is it calls basically this class, this Java class, com IBM DI server stash file. And it does that by specifying multiple jar files in the class path. And what this means, if you're not familiar with Java, is that there's a definition for this class in one of these jar files. And so if we can figure out which one, we can, using another tool, JD GUI, we can actually look in that jar file and see what's going on. We can see the code that's being called and look to see if there's something else that can be done or some other method that's defined that can be used to decrypt this file. So all of these are under TDI home, jars, and two of them are under common. So I've got common miserver.jar and common TDI resource.jar. Then there's third-party IBM, ICU, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to do is I have a handy-dandy tool called JD GUI, and I'll include a link to this also in the blog post about this. And what this does is a Java decompiler. It's on GitHub. And what it allows you to do is decompile a Java class file or a jar file. And so you can pull a jar file in here. So I'm already in the TDI home common directory. And actually, I am going to go under the 711 just so we're looking at the right stuff. Common jar, or jar is common. There we go. And MI server is one, and TDI resource is the other. So we got these two. It'll only open one at a time, but I can come back and get the other ones. But there's MI server, and what we're looking for again is the class com.ibm.di.server.stash file. And so we are going to look in here first, and we see there's com.ibm.di, and then we see server. Cool. So it has this package in this file. The same package can actually be in multiple jar files. There's no limitation there, but we're going to see if there is a stash file.class, and there is. And we click on that, and here's where the magic happens. A whole lot of the magic. It decompiles this class file into readable Java code, which is just absolutely amazing. Because it'll show you, if you know Java, exactly what is going on in this class. And so in here, when a class is invoked, like it is in the create stash file, run this guy. So it's invoked just with this class name. That means that there is a main class. Just that's how it goes with Java. There's a main method in this class that's invoked when this class is called. And so we can scroll down and we actually see right here that that's what's happening. This main class or main method does exist, and it's invoked to do something. So we can see what it does, and we can see that it gets the arguments, all that kind of stuff, good enough, and then it calls create stash file. And notice this create stash file is underlined, meaning Java decompiler, the JD GUI, knows about it, and or it's somewhere nearby, and we can click on this and it'll go to the definition of that method. So we can see exactly what this does. So we can see, for example, that this method, so the create stash.sh shell script, in effect, always creates a file named idisrv.sth. That's what it does. And then how it's doing that is it is calling encrypt to encrypt this guy, doing some stuff. We can click on encrypt. We can see what that does. So from the documentation, we know that it is an AES encryption. And so it actually calls crypto. There's a crypto class involved, .encrypt to encrypt this guy. So it does something to encrypt this guy. And to find that crypto class, We can probably find it up here. And it is somewhere in here. Doesn't really matter. What we want to see is if there's a decrypt. We saw an encrypt function, and so I want to Control F to search for decrypt. And there is a decrypt that's called here in the read passwords from file method. So that's kind of nice. And this read passwords from file method returns a vector. So this guy calls decrypt, and it looks like when it calls it, what do we have? New stash file, or file stash file equals new file a stash file. What this guy is doing is calling, what do we got? Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. It is, looks like this could be the key that it uses for AES encryption. But anyway, it looks like all we need to provide for this one is the stash file. So let's see if there's anything else. There's read passwords, but it looks like read passwords from file, which takes single parameter. The stash file could be what we're looking for. Let's see if there's anything else. Read array, write array. No, that is looking like what we want. Read password from file, read password. Maybe there we go. This could be an easier path to it. And this is what I had found before. Read passwords takes no parameters, and it calls read passwords with one parameter, the name of the file. And so if we look at that guy, here's read passwords with one string parameter. And what it does is it calls read passwords from file. There we go. So we can really, if we have idisrv.sth in this same directory, we can just call the read passwords method, and the full name of that method is com.ibm.di.server.stashfile.readpasswords. And you get that from the package name, com.ibm.di.server, then the class, stash file, and then the name of the method, read passwords. So we have what we need. This JD GUI is extremely impressive, gives you that information. And now we need to create a Java file to invoke this method. And really all we need to know is a couple of things. One is that what this returns is a vector of strings. So what we need to do is invoke this method and store its return in a variable that's a vector, and then retrieve the first element of that vector. And so what I've done is create a Java file that does exactly that, where the file name ftstashfile.java has to match the name of the class defined in here, and just basically need to import two things: the stash file that we want to deal with, and then vector, so that we know how to deal with the vector. And we're just going to create this this new class that's just extending stash file. So I'm saying this new class is exactly like stash file, just with one override, basically. That override being the main method, such that when this class is called, this ftstashfile class is invoked via Java, it's going to call this main that's defined here. And all this does is just, it calls read passwords. And then I looked on Google to find out how to get the first element of a vector. And it is just with the first element method. Easy enough. And then system.out.println is used to print out stuff in Java. And I have this in a try catch block because this is defined to throw an exception. Read passwords is defined to throw an exception, so you generally have to put a try catch around it, and if anything goes wrong, it's just going to print out the exception. So now that we have that, we just need to compile this guy with Java C, and the only abnormal class that we're dealing with is that stash file class, which is in idisrv.jar. So all we need in the class path is the local directory, which is where ft-stashfile.java is, and then the idisrv.jar file. So I'm going to compile this. And again, I happen to have the right versions of Java, so nothing goes wrong. And I have the Java JDK, which includes Java C. So that's all stuff that you would have to get in place to completely do this. But now I have this guy compiled as ft-stashfile.class. And to run it, I need some extra parameters. And so I've already figured those out. And just so that I could find it easily, I put in my Java command this, just so I could find it in my history. But it's really Java minus class path, need the local directory, and then I figured I would include all of the jars that are included in the create stash file, or create stash.sh shell script, just to be complete. So that's where I got this list of jars to include in the class path. And so I'm going to run this guy, and I get an error because the idisrv.sth isn't found in, it says in solution folder, and it really means in the current folder. And so I'm just going to copy the one that happens to be in the install directory because I've used that as a solution directory, so it created that. So I'm going to copy it here, and then I'm going to run my Java command again, and it prints out server, which is the default password of the testserver.jks key store. And there you go. It may not seem that straightforward. I kind of think it is. If you mess with Java much, you really need to get familiar with the JD GUI utility, because it can just help you figure out stuff, figure out why errors might be coming up, things like this, methods that exist but aren't exposed as part of an API, stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that, because without this, if you forget the password for the key store, you have no way of remembering it and no way of getting it out of this idisrv.sth file. But if you just put a little effort in, or just copy what I have and compile it, you'll be good to go. So this is the sort of stuff I do, and I can help your company with it. So I am available for hire. Please feel free to get in touch with me. I've got links in the description to my website and my email. So subscribe and post this on social media. Let it get some exposure out there. And I will see you next time. Hope you enjoyed this. Take care.